Welcome to Fixing Yu-Gi-Oh, where we use game design and hindsight to fix all the early mistakes of early Yu-Gi-Oh. This week is special because we get our very first ban list. Well, technically it was last week, but there was more to cover card-wise there. So we're gonna cover it this time, and it's the same ban list anyways. So on with the show. So let's talk about Yu-Gi-Oh's first early on ban list. We have a couple big cards on here. CED is finally dead. I can stop trash talking it all the time. But there were a few weird hits to me, at least, that I was a little unsure of why until I looked at some of the other products and like, oh, they just wanted to sell more stuff. So Sanigan and Witch, those are two cards that have been in basically every deck since their release in Metal Raiders. So I understand why they hit the ban list to an extent. I don't think they were particularly broken, even with their like pre-eroded effects, where you could even use those card effects right away. But I understand it because they were just general staples in everyone's deck. Yada Garatsu, he was the bird that attacked me in that one episode. That was annoying. But some of these other cards, such as like Dark Hole and Regeki, well, Lightning Vortex came out I think last set, so it's understandable that they would ban those because they want you to have to buy those new Lightning Vortexes. So power creep doesn't always go up, sometimes it just goes down. Other cards like Delinquent Duo, Graceful Charity are in Imperial Order, especially the original Imperial Order. Good riddance. Like, it makes sense. Monster Reborn, we have Monster Reincarnation. Again, I get where they're going with it. It is in a powerful swing card, so I fully get it. United We Stand, I thought was a little bit of a weird, but it does allow like the Benkai OTK. Not that it was really like dominating the meta, but it is definitely a really strong card, especially with the GOAT tokens. So that's kind of why they did that. Mirror Force, I think, is kind of dumb. I think a one of Mirror Force is fine back then, but I guess it was just too oppressive. And it does feel bad to think you have game and run into Mirror Force. It's a bummer, but it was something that played around, so I probably wouldn't have banned it at that time period at least. So those are the cards that all got hit, and we did kind of fix a few of those in the past. Like Delinquent Duo, we said that we could just have you have to be behind in card advantage to play that card. We also said Graceful Charity, you would have to like banish cards face down. Yu-Gi-Oh just didn't really utilize a face down banish mechanic to completely remove it or future proof the game a little bit more. So that's kind of a miss for that, but I think Graceful Charity should just have never been printed as it is because anybody could have told you that card was going to be busted in Yu-Gi-Oh at any point, I feel like. But with the first ban list really being pushed and introduced, this goes on, I believe, until like October 2004. So it this list lasts a while, and honestly, I think it was super healthy for the game. The ban list and like limited list was always really important with Yu-Gi-Oh, and interesting. Hey, you know what? I think we messed up with these cards. We need to ban them. Is respectable, and I think every card on there deserved to be banned to some extent. Maybe not so much as Dark Hole, in my opinion. I know Dark Hole it felt like a sacky card, but it was super necessary in my opinion. Regeki, I get. This show's not really about that. It's about fixing bad Yu-Gi-Oh cards and making them playable. And again, keyword is playable. We don't want to make everything broken. So let's take a look at some of these ultimate rare cards and see what we can do because a lot of the cards in this set, again, just never really got played. So Sacred Phoenix of NEPHTHYS, it's a solid card. It didn't really see too much competitive play, but to my knowledge, we don't really need to fix this card. This card itself is good. I do feel like we missed the mark on some support to get this card really feel like the boss. Like if you're going to put this on the cover art of anything, then you want to make sure that it feels like it's a boss card or something. And I think Konami really missed the mark with that. Silent Swordsmans, they are okay. More LV monsters that are unaffected by spells. They're light warrior, so it had its niche with like Chaos Warrior engine and could be played. So again, nothing really here that I feel like we have to fix. Gearfried the Swordmaster, it's a solid boss. It played in Warriors Triumph the structure deck. Was definitely a good card. At least Restraint just needed to be searchable to some kind of extent. So I think this is the first card we can really look at and actually fix. And I really feel like this guy could use like the fusion treatment just because drawing this card into your deck is pretty bad. I know this topic has been brought up by a lot of Yugi tubers and stuff, but there are certain cards that just we kind of wish they would have been. I call it the red border, and I think a few other people I've seen have said it, where it's a card that requires a special summoning condition that is normally in the deck, but I kind of wish that those cards would just be like, hey, these are in the extra deck, so you don't hard draw onto those. So that way, because Yu-Gi-Oh is about consistency, and a lot of people just don't want to play bad cards that are just going to brick. So maybe Gearfried could be like a red bordered card that can be special summoned with specific effects, like release Restraint in this example. But otherwise, we're just going to call him a fusion monster for now, and we're going to make release Restraint a fusion card. So this card is used to fusion summon Gearfried. This keeps him from being a dead draw, which is a major buff to his playability, and so maybe Restraint looks a little bit more like this card is used to special summon Gearfried the Swordmaster from your extra deck. You must tribute a face-up Gearfried the Iron Knight to activate this card. I'm actually keeping it like this because I think it'd be hilarious to be able to tribute off your opponent's Gearfrieds if there are playing that. So having this guy in a mirror is kind of funny, and it's a really hilarious power swing. But otherwise, if you wanted to avoid that, you would just say tribute a Gearfried you control. And at that point, it becomes a pretty strong card. I don't really have any two objections about it. I think the Gearfried cards are cool. It's just they're not good enough to really be played in this format. Now, I want to point out that we are starting to teeter into GOAT format now. I believe this is the actual ban list that is using GOAT format on top of everything. So we are starting to see this, and even though we're only in February in terms of the timeline for Flaming Eternity, a lot of the decks and builds that you would see in GOAT format are starting to solidify themselves here before the big YCS. I am by no means a GOAT expert about it, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail about GOAT format. That's not what this channel is about. It's just about fixing the bad stuff that hopefully we could slice in to game formats and see where it would kind of fit. It's kind of nice to kind of look at the format, how it was formed originally, and build cards around those formats of, hey, this deck was losing a little bit, or this couldn't compete against this, and buffing things accordingly so that way they hopefully could compete. But overall, I try my best to make sure that any card that I create is just under the top tier curves because I want them to be played, but I don't really want to disrupt the meta game as how it formed. There's a reason these games are meta, but I would have liked to have these decks in my locals where I got to see multiple different decks before going to these tournaments, especially back then where everybody I felt like a lot of people, if you were playing casually, everybody had a unique deck. And that's really what I'm trying to mimic is say, hey, I want to build my Beast deck now, or I want to build my Sacred Phoenix deck. So I think you guys kind of get the gist of that, but we really don't need to go into full detail about GOAT format, but just know that this is really where GOAT format starts to take off. The decks haven't been solidified yet. But let's move on to the Gatling Dragon. This is the other ultra rare. It is a really cool looking card in my opinion. And we have so far given mechs some love and support, and we're going to kind of continue this. We gave them the Fiend cards, like that dice re-rolling card effect, so we got to give machines like a metal coin to do something similar, because so far the big machine that a lot of people know from their childhood is probably Barrel Dragon. It was a cool card. It wasn't that good, but it seemed to be in everybody's deck that I grew up with because it was just a ultra rare card or secret card that just wasn't that valuable, so people were willing to trade for it. So I had like two of them as a kid, and I seen them in a lot of decks when I was playing. Let's talk about Gatling Dragon. First off, we need to make a flip coin effect card thing. So we're gonna call it Metal Trick Coin. While you control a face-up machine card, this card cannot be destroyed. Whenever you would flip a coin to activate a machine monster's effect, you may choose the result. So this is going to be a little bit more specific, whereas the Fiend Dice card, you got to choose your results, but you had to have a Fiend on the field. I'm sorry, you didn't have to have a Fiend on the field. It was just you have to pay life, or I forgot what a card. I'll put it on screen. I'm not going to look it up. So you get to choose your dice roll. You get to choose your coin toss when it's relating to machines. And this will kind of start some of the machine stuff that we come out in the future. We might want to convert over from a dice roll to a coin flip because of this. I'm looking at Morphtronics in the future. I think that would be a really cool fix for them because they were horrible in my opinion. But we'll get to that in the future. But just know that I have plans for machines and coin tosses. They will be my coin tossing deck purely because of Barrel Dragon and the precedent that it stuck. And now we have this Boral Dragon thing too as well. So machines can manipulate RNG, just like how they probably do IRL, and so I think that's cool. But Gatling Dragon is still a little weaker right now. Again, there's not much of a reason to play a lot of fusions because they're just going to lose to Fissure, Smashing Ground, Dark. Well, not Dark Hole anymore, but you know what I mean. But once per turn, Gatling's Dragon says you can toss 3 coins, destroy as many monsters on the field as possible, but not more than the number of heads. I feel like that's weird wording, but I don't have an idea for something better. When this card is destroyed by a card effect, oh, sorry, this is my part where I want to add on. When this card is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, special summon a Barrel Dragon from your graveyard and face up attack or defense, or I'm sorry, face up defense position. Its attack and defense are 0. Its effects cannot be activated the turn it's special summoned. Whew, okay. So that's my idea to kind of fix it, just to give them that extra fusion spiff that we've done in the past with like LOB fusions, where you're able to special summon materials back from the graveyard. However, after researching this, I found this pretty. I didn't know this field card existed. So centrifugal field. It basically does the same thing. So I don't think we can really utilize it more. But this, otherwise, this card would be obsolete. This card basically just allows you to special summon a fusion material from your graveyard when your fusion card that you have had is destroyed. Like, I don't really know why this card wasn't played in hero decks. Knowing about this now, I would probably splash this in somehow. Like, I don't think it's that bad of a card. I I don't know why more people haven't played this card. I don't know why it's bad. I think it's fine. I don't think it's amazing, but it is saving you from going neg. Maybe if this, like, I don't really know why this card isn't being played that much, because most of the time my fusions are being hit by a random card effect, not so much being beaten over. And I think this dragon, like Gatling Dragon thing, would definitely not be an exception to that. It's going to die to like Trap Hole or something. Gatling Dragon, I think, just needs a bit more protection. And since we have that card out, I don't want to do the special summon a Gatling Dragon from your graveyard. So we are just going to say Gatling Dragon is going to be immune to being targeted by card effects, similar to what other machines are all about. Their metal coating can't be targeted or can't be destroyed or can't be destroyed by battle. Like, that's the stuff machines should kind of get, and I think that would fit this card better, and it would give you a reason to play Old Barrel Dragon if you wanted, or the Hex cards that came out in this set, and we'll talk more about those in a bit. So as of right now, I think Boral Dragon is, or I'm sorry, Gatling Dragon is fixed, and I don't have to do much. All right, the beasts. This is probably going to be the bulk of the episode. The beasts just came out with a lot of really cool things, but there's just a lot of misses here. Like, they came out with a lot of beast cards, just not many of them are, or any of them are good.
You have been a little out of sorts. Erratic. Unreliable. Downright sloppy. Not you, Noir. You've been great. But the rest of you, it is fair to say that I am disappointed.
Behemoth, the king of all animals. It can be a competitive boss, but it definitely needs support. Not so much as him, because his effect is actually solid, but some of the beasts that were released in this set, I just don't think it has much synergy, so we're going to fix that. First off, the hyena. It's just a worse version of Nimble Momonga. Put him at like 1200 attack instead of 1k, and it's a bit better, or replace the effect with when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard. It doesn't have to be by battle. You can special summon any number of hyenas from your deck, and then leave its stats alone. So it needs one of those changes. It either needs a slightly bigger stat buff, so that way I could bring them out. I think that if this card is just destroyed, it should be able to spam out the cards from your graveyard. Or I'm sorry, from your deck. I think that's actually a lot better. If you feel like that's actually too much, one other alternative I could say is when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, special summon another hyena from your graveyard. So that way they can kind of loop, which would be kind of cool, but I think that might be overkill. So I think just when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, special summon a hyena from your deck is totally fine. Kangaroo Champ. This is pretty bad, and it's a cool art. I like it a lot, but this guy should be like a level 2 or a 3. At like I level 4 is unnecessary, but I do have some things that we're gonna do to kind of stat buff him. It just doesn't fit the fact that it's a kangaroo holding a boxing championship. Like, forcing a card to defense mode is just horrible with this kind of stat line. Like, no. All right, so Kangaroo Champ. While this card is the only monster on the field, it gains 1,000 attack. He's a champions. When he's standing tall, he's on top of the world. Like I am all that remains on the field. I'm strong, like so on. However, since he's a champion, he should never back down and be able to withstand brutal punishment of being punched in the face. While this card is in face-up attack position, it cannot be destroyed by battle. So when Kangaroo is solo, he is an 1800 beat stick. That's pretty good. When he's not solo, he is going to defend your life points till he can't stand anymore, which is just until you are beaten where your life points are 0. He might still be standing, but the person behind him won't be. So I think it's a cool fix, and it fits this card really well. Yeah, that's all we need to do. I think just the Kangaroo Champion, it's just a cool looking card, but the defense thing just doesn't matter whatsoever in this game. So we're going to remove that, and my effect is way cooler, and it fits the theme. Catnipped Kitty. This card cannot be attacked if there's another beast on the field, on your side of the field. Once per turn, you can make the defense of one monster on your opponent's side of the field 0 until the end of the turn. I know some of the beasts do have some piercing kind of stuff, but as this card stands solo and not much synergy with any other beasts that have been released in this set, it's horrible. It is useless as it stands. So we're going to switch the defense with attack, so it's still kind of bad, but it's at least useful. It has its niche. So if you can make your opponent's monster 0 attack because of this card while you have another beast, it required me having some setup. So I have my beast on the field. I have my Catnip Kitty in hand. Normal summon Catnip Kitty. Catnip makes that attack 0. Ram into the big guy that I couldn't normally get over. That makes the normal summon worth this card. This card is basically some kind of removal form, and it's at the cost of your normal summon, and it's at the cost of having a weak beast monster on the field. Thankfully, though, because of its first effect, where it cannot be targeted by an attack as long as you have another beast, which is also the other clause of you making their attack 0, I think it's a fine card, and it's totally fine as it stands. I thought about while you control another level 2 beast, you may special summon this card. That way it kind of gets a lot more playability and you can kind of manipulate a little bit more, but I do think that is just... It might be too strong for the time period, and I don't really need that right now. I don't want special summoning spam stuff, even if it is that specific where you have to have a low level beast to special summon it. Maybe we say level 3 because of the hyenas, or maybe we put Kangaroo at a 3 instead of the 2. I don't know, but I don't think the special summoning this guy is good. I think you should have to use your normal summon with it. And if you do that, there are probably some niches that you could do with this card, at least to be a little bit more playable than it is now, because nobody's playing Catnip Kitty. And it's a god kitty. Like, I want to play the kitty. I do want to shout out these hex cards because they are cool cards that are replacements for fusion materials of the attribute. I love the design. I love them so much. They don't really get to see much competitive play, but they are great in limited formats. These cards have been clutch to me in the progression series, so I like them a lot. Kudos to Konami. Great cards. Don't need to fix them. We also have the tribute fodders like Flame Ruler and Whirlwind Prodigy. I've been pitching like the tribute fodder kind of cards for a while. Never really wanted to commit to it because I knew that these guys existed. So the only thing I would really say is just they needed their stat line adjusted slightly. Like 15-16 is kind of weird, so 15-15 is fine. And also the fact, yeah, that's cool that they are required for. I'm sorry, 2 tribute cards are fine. You can basically tribute this guy off. He counts as 2 tributes, but that's not enough of a reason to ever play these cards. And again, I know they're commons, but I do truly stand by you should have some kind of bonus effect for tributing them off if you're pairing them with the right attribute. So I want to reward that. So, I mean, Flame Ruler, he burns. Whirlwind Prodigy, he would bounce, and etc. Like the other ones, if there are, I've done a few. Other cards in the future, they would just basically, well, water spells and traps, or heal or whatever. Like they can have those kind of tribute fodder effects. So we finally get to Giant Chicken number 1, Sacred Phoenix of NEPHTHYS. We're going to keep the effect the exact same. It's just being a heavy storm. It's a solid card. It sees play as it stands. It's not broken. It's a perfect fine card for my show. So what I do want to touch is Feather of the Phoenix. It's a trap card now because playing this at a spell speed 1 is pretty bad. When a monster you can and it also doesn't fit the theme of it's a phoenix feather or phoenixes or just rising from death. Normally, you would discard a card and then target one monster or one card in your graveyard and place it on the top of your deck. That doesn't feel very phoenixy. So we're going to manipulate this a little bit, and stat. It's just such a slow card. I know there are some niches to it, and I also hated the fact that it's a discard first for cost, like meaning that that's what you have to do. So like you don't even get like Dark World effects if you needed to in the future. So I thought about putting that like as the after effect, but we're just gonna go with this because I feel like it fits the theme a lot better. When a monster you control is destroyed, target one monster in your graveyard and place it on the top of your deck. While you control a card that has Phoenix in its name, add it to your hand instead. Okay, so it is a monster rising from the grave and being placed on the deck. Or if there was a Phoenix on the field, then you get to put that card back in your hand. I do want to try and fix the wording so that way, if let's say I do have NEPHTHYS in my, like if I had NEPHTHYS on the field and this NEPHTHYS dies, I could activate this trap and just add NEPHTHYS back to my hand. But that's just wording things of like how it should be played. I do feel like the Phoenix rising from the ashes and being reborn in whether it's going to be put it on the top of your deck to take one, or if it is a Phoenix, then you get to draw it immediately. I think it's cool. I like it. It fits the theme really well, and that's all I need to do. Hand of NEPHTHYS. So you contribute this card and one other monster, special summon one Sacred Phoenix of NEPHTHYS from your hand to your deck, or I'm sorry, hand or deck. Great card. It allows you to spam out the Phoenix easily, and if you're building a deck around that, I do think it's necessary to do this, and no fix needed. But the last card I want to fit into this Phoenix theme is just Firebird. You guys see the Actman thing of like just bat?
And you might say, well, Actman, you're pretending like there weren't dumb cards back in the glory days. Yeah, there were, but they were stupid and simple. Like Bat or Frog the Jam.
Like, this is Firebird. So we're going to call this guy just, well, Phoenix is fine. Phoenix Firebird, if you really want to get creative with names, whatever. But basically, we just need to change it to Phoenix of some sort. Its effect is pretty bad and it doesn't really scream out Firebird or Phoenix at all. So we're going to work the whole reborn thing. When this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, special summon it from your graveyard on your next standby phase in attack position. So, hey, it's a reborn. Its name changes, gives it more synergy, like similar to the Phoenix Feather, and it is fitting the whole theme. It is not quite a treeborn frog because it has to be destroyed and it just doesn't come back all the time, but there's also no cost to, oh, I can't play my back row. So it's a different version of the frog, but it fits the whole reborning theme pretty well. And its stat line is weak, so it has to be in attack position and then it just gets brought back. So I think it's cool. It does fit with the Monarch themes a little bit too, which you can really use to play around with them. And I like this card a lot as it stands. So that's how I'd fix Flaming Eternity. Did I get something wrong? Did I do things right? This set was a big focus on beasts, but the cover card just didn't get any real support, and so it kind of felt like it was a waste because it's a cool looking card, it's a cool effect, and we just didn't get anything out of it. As always, guys, please like, subscribe, share, do all the fun YouTube-y things, and of course, sign off catchphrase. Talk to you guys next time.